Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. Once again, this is episode number 177, entitled Pro WaaS, a.k.a. Websites as a Service with Michael Short. It was published on Thursday, the 30th of April 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley and I'd like to welcome you formally to WPBuilds.com. We are a WordPress specific network and we've got absolutely loads of content pushed out each and every week, and I'd like to mention a little bit of it now if that's okay. Head over to WPBuilds.com/subscribe, and over on that page you're going to find a whole heap of ways of keeping in touch with all the stuff that we do at WP Builds. There's a couple of emails that you can sign up for, one to tell you about the content that we produce, we call that the newsletter, and the other one is a WP Builds deals update, and if you subscribe to that one each and every time a deal comes out, we will alert you about it. There's also options on there to sign up on your favourite podcast player so that you don't miss any of the episodes, and join our Facebook group of 2,500 WordPressers. And there's things like our Messenger chat, Twitter feed, and YouTube channel, and so on. So that's wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Another thing to mention would be wpbuilds.com/deals. This is a deals page which is up 365 days of the year. It's filterable and searchable, and none of the deals so far have expired. They've just come onto the page and the page has grown and grown. So there's massive amounts of notable WordPress plugins. I do thank all of the plugin and theme developers for their support. And we've added one this week which is completely to do with this podcast. Michael Short, who runs WaaS Pro, has enabled us to give you 20% off. And the best way to find out about that is go to wpbuilds.com/deals, click the yellow search and filter button and type in WaaS, WaaS, and you will see WaaS Pro comes up 20% off, and you've got a coupon code on there. But there's absolutely loads of stuff on that page as well. So that's wpbuilds.com/deals. Well, it just keeps coming. wpbuilds.com/win, because Michael Short, not only has he given us a 20% off coupon, he's also given us 5 licenses to his WaaS Pro plugins. So this is a suite of plugins. There's absolutely loads of them, and they enable you to make more of your website as a service offering. So for example, we've got a plugin called Site Settings Pro, Settings Wizard Pro, Site Analytics Pro, Stock Library Pro. There's absolutely loads, some of them specific to Beaver Builder, some to Elementor, and really the best thing to do would be go over to wpbuilds.com/win, and you can go over there and enter a competition. It's one of these viral competition things. It's powered by Raffle Press, and the more times that you enter, the more interactions you have. So for example, if you visit our Facebook page and sign up to our newsletter, you get additional points, and points mean prizes, and Michael's giving away 5 of those licenses. Currently, there's about 20 days left on that competition, but go and enter, share it across the universe, and you'll get a greater chance of winning. So that's wpbuilds.com/win, and wpbuilds.com/advertise. If, like Michael, you are in the boat of creating WordPress products, well, the WP Builds podcast might be a great place, because we have a WordPress specific audience, just like no doubt you are. Okay, so that's all of my housekeeping out of the way. Let's get on with the actual podcast. Okay, as I said at the top, we're talking to Michael Short today. Michael has an absolute ton of offerings out there online. He has a service called WaaS Pro, and he has another service called WaaS Camp. Now, WaaS, if you've been living under a rock, stands for, it's an acronym standing for Website as a Service. And the intention is that you find a niche, you find an area where you feel that you can contribute, and you offer that up as a service. And the idea is that you construct sort of templated websites which people can come along and buy into. There's loads of plugins out there, most notably WP Ultimo. Arindo Duque has been on the podcast on several occasions talking about that. And this makes it possible for you to streamline this whole thing so that people can go to your website and purchase a template. So they like the look of a particular website, they buy it, and it's now their website which they can run. Now, WP Ultimo has a great deal of functionality in it, but Michael, with his WaaS Pro, has decided that he's going to extend that, and he's got absolutely loads of different extensions that I mentioned earlier. You can win them in the competition, but there's absolutely loads of them. There's probably about 20 or so which extend the functionality. They add capabilities for page builders. They've got settings wizards and all sorts of things, payment gateways added in, and so on and so forth. So his service really extends that, but also, thrown into that, he's got this WaaS Camp offering, which enables you to learn how to set up your website as a service professionally and quickly and so on. And so he's on the podcast talking about all of that today. There's a lot of ground that we cover, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hello. Thank you for listening to the WP Builds podcast once more, and thanks for getting to the interview section. We have today Michael Short, all the way from North America. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
If you've not heard of Michael before, I'm just going to hand over the floor to you, because you'll probably do a far better job at explaining what it is that you bring to WordPress than I will. So first of all, Michael, just tell us what your background is with WordPress and what it is that you are talking about today.
Yeah, so I've been in the marketing and advertising agency business for over 20 years. This year actually marked our 20-year mark. And in that process, we came to a point where we started creating plugins this last year and a half. And so now we are creating plugins for a little known concept called Websites as a Service. And the business name that we run our plugins is called WaaS Pro. We also have a Facebook group with some live active members that are all in the process of trying to either build their WaaS or come up with ideas for a WaaS or promote their WaaS. So yeah, that's what we do. Now,
it always seems to me that in podcasts like this, very often the URLs are distributed towards the end. It kind of makes sense to me, if we're going to talk about your products and services, do you want to just knock the URLs out right at the beginning so that people can pause, go and check out what it is that we're talking about, go and have a look at the products and whatnot, and then come back and press play again?
Yeah, sounds good. So we have waaspro.com. waas-pro.com is the URL. And you can go check those out. It will also have the Facebook group. If you go there to facebook.com/groups/waas.developer.network, you can find us there as well.
Okay. So WaaS, WaaS, is an acronym for... Now, I never know if it's a website as a service or if it's WordPress as a service. I suppose ultimately it means the same thing. This kind of blew up last year. I remember talking a lot about this, especially around a product called WP Ultimo. And it felt literally 12 months ago, more or less to the day, that this thing was going to be huge in the year of 2019. And then it kind of went a little bit more quiet than I was expecting. I was expecting it to just go ballistic. Have you got any thoughts on that? Was it me? Did I just miss out on that tidal wave of popularity, or did it kind of not culminate in the way that I thought it would?
Yeah, you totally missed out. Everyone's doing it. No, I think it's just a matter of getting more awareness. I don't know that enough people are aware of it. I think there's a lot of interest. The group that we have has got close to 2,500 people now, and it's pretty active. So there is quite a bit of activity and things going on around the space. However, I don't think that there's enough people. Like, there's no numbers like Elementor's groups or anything like that where you have mass adoption or mass awareness. But I do believe 2020 is probably really going to be honestly, I think even 2021 is really going to be the breakout year. 2020, I think we still have to spend some time generating more awareness around this concept. And I'd love to share more of that concept with you guys.
Okay, so let's rewind right to the very beginning about what this is and what exactly can be accomplished with a WaaS. So let's first of all work out what it is. So website as a service, WordPress as a service, whatever you want to call it. What even is that?
Well, I would argue it's actually bigger than WordPress. I think it's websites. And the reason being is that there are platforms out there that do follow this business model, such as Wix, GoDaddy, Squarespace. All of them have their own website as a service platform. And so the idea is to have a way to scale your business on a much quicker, grander scale than you could do with a traditional business agency business model. So rather than building out sites singly one by one, you're creating a system, much like Wix, much like Squarespace, that a customer can go in, go to your landing page and see all your templates, pick a plan, which plan level they want, pick a template, and get all signed up on their own without much of your involvement at all if you do it properly. So that's really what the whole concept is. And that's what got me excited, because if you think about it, you literally can sign up 100 people in a day or more. I mean, I'm just using a random number there, and really have very little effect on your business if you built it right. So like, you're not going to have very many trouble tickets or anything like that if you have a nice solid WaaS. And that's what our tools help you create. So
okay. Yeah. The audience that we have, like all audiences, it comes and goes. There's flux, and so it may be that a lot of people have heard this kind of talk before. But if not, just to make it absolutely clear, we're using WordPress, and we're using a variety of plugins and possibly themes as well to enable it such that you can have a multi-site install of WordPress, set it up with kind of payment gateways and theme options, and clients that you find can go to your page, inspect the kind of site that they want to purchase, pay, then access their own installation of WordPress, modify it as they see fit, click save, and in effect you've built them a website, but you haven't really interacted with them. And I suppose that's the key point. You're cutting yourself out of the need to build it for them. They're able to do this by leveraging the tools that you've thrown into your WordPress multi-site.
I would say yes, but that's in a perfect world. From experience, we've actually found something a little bit different than that. We do find that if you have a required setup as part of your process, that tends to have less churn at the end. Like less people will cancel with you. In our own experience, we have our own WaaS. This is how we got into this in the first place. And what we found is that if we give them all the keys to the kingdom and expect them to build the site out themselves, they tend to not get around to it. They just feel like a little overwhelmed, no matter how easy the page builders are, how easy we feel it is to go in there and make edits. Customers, that's not their business. They're not web developers in the most part. I mean, obviously there's some companies that have marketing departments, but in general, the smaller companies just they're focused on what they do best. And so I would actually recommend, I think, when I stated that originally, like you can scale 100 people without much involvement, that's the most ideal scenario. However, I don't know how practical that is, because people like to still have that interaction with somebody, and to get them set up quickly, it's just an opportunity, I think, for more than anything, it's an opportunity to get your foot in their door and to offer other services as well. So there's like so many opportunities here with the website as a service. For example, right now, the majority of our customer base is probably going to be developers and agencies. However, I think in the future, once we get the tools dialed in right, I think it can open the door up to just about any type of business that has a following. Like if you are, like I came across a lady, for example, who is in the knitting industry, and she teaches people. She has a blog and has hundreds of thousands of followers following her on how to do knitting and stuff. And she has an audience. She's coming out with courses, all of these things. But I think having a WaaS in place for her to offer her audience would be a great thing for her to do. I mean, another income source. So.
Yeah, and it kind of feels that like we say niche in the UK. We don't pronounce it niche, so I'm going to say niche, and I'll try to remember it that way. But if I go straight back into niche, apologies. It kind of feels like that having a niche is where this belongs somewhere. So you mentioned knitting, but I suppose the niche could be anything. You might be into selling automobiles, or you might be into cleaning products or whatever. But is that the way this is going? We're not trying to offer some sort of generic website tool like Squarespace. It's available for everybody, because I presume that just doesn't work. The more niche niche you go, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, everyone has their own strategies, but then what we definitely recommend is to pick a niche, or however you want to say it. Because you can't really compete on the level of price when it comes to with Wix or GoDaddy. I mean, and be successful. I mean, you can compete, you can give it away for free, but you're not going to be successful with it. So, the things that we can actually bring to the table, like GoDaddy has this beat, for example, on their customer support. They're 24/7. I don't know many people that can offer that kind of support on a smaller scale. And so where we have them beat is being able to identify a specific niche and then cater to that niche and understand what their actual needs are and build out a product that they can easily pick up and get implemented quickly Whereas GoDaddy, they're going to have to go in there, and I'm just picking on GoDaddy. There's so many other ones. But any one of those other platforms, you're going to have to go in there. Now, they do have templates for various niches. However, I don't feel personally that they're going to be as dialed in as what one can do with their own WaaS. Like if you are specifically focusing on a niche or an audience, you can definitely add features, a feature set or feature stack that will cater specifically to their needs. And I think when you identify with their needs or identify with their issues and show how you solve them, you're going to have much more success than trying to be everything to everyone, because you end up being nothing to everyone at that point.
That's a good point. So using your products and what have you, you mentioned this lady who has knitting and what have you. Have you got any examples of other niches that are being successfully used at the moment?
Yeah, one of the most popular niches inside of our WaaS group happens to be churches. Seems to be a lot of people are liking to target churches.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm not from that space, so I'm not sure why, but that seems to be one that a lot of people, maybe they just feel like that's a good place for them to develop relationships and they feel close to. I don't know. I can come up with a lot of different scenarios of why that might be.
I wonder if it's because they need to update it every week. You know, every Sunday something new happens, right? And you got to keep the congregation aware of what's going on. I don't know. That's a guess.
That's true. That's a good point. And one of the things too is like as you pick a niche, like you want to find a niche that does have to get on their site, act on regular basis. I mean, there's a book called Hooked where it talks about building out feature sets in whatever product that you're trying to do to get them hooked on coming back, just like, something like Facebook does. You get us hooked and it becomes a habit. And then if they have that habit, then they're less likely to cancel with you. And ultimately the goal is to have little to no churn. So you just want to keep stacking on top of your client base.
So sorry, churches and knitting and...
knitting is probably a very small one. Ours, for example, is in the auto care industry. When you pick a niche, one of the things we recommend is you pick it with whatever you have experience in. And so we had a lot of customers in our agency that were in the automotive space. And so this really helped us niche down, actually, building out a WaaS. Because as an agency, you know how to build a website's a website in theory, right? If you can build a website for a church, you can probably build it for a car store down the street or whatever. Like it's just, it is what it is. Now, with a WaaS, like it makes you really think about that specific niche that you're targeting. And it also niching down, it has a lot of benefits to it. You know how to target who your target audience is, so that you're not spinning your wheels going after knocking on everybody's door. You're knocking only on the doors that are most likely to buy your product or your service.
Yeah, that's a good point. And obviously the materials that you create and the way you present yourself will be very much more aligned to what those people want to hear, and you'll adopt the correct language and the correct terminology and acronyms over the period of time that you're doing it. Yeah, really good point. Obviously everybody that's listening to this in some way, shape or form has got experience with WordPress. So let's go a little bit more technical for a moment. What are the tools that we are deploying apart from WordPress with multi-site, let's say, switched on, for want of a better way of describing it? What are the recommended tools that you're using and recommending outside of the ones that you make?
Yeah, of course. I was actually going to make a suggestion on the first one that you should get is WP Ultimo.
Okay.
And that one basically allows you to set up plans, subscriptions, all that stuff, templates and stuff like that within your multi-site environment. And so it does all of the management for you. And then from there, you can start adding on features and stuff to just make that experience better. And that's where we come in. Many of our plugins, if not all of our plugins, actually integrate with WP Ultimo. That's kind of the core thing. Now, there was a plugin by WP Dev that they've recently abandoned this year. It's what's called Pro Sites. If you guys are not familiar with WP Dev, they were the pioneers in this space, and they really got it going. Their focus is less on it, even though I talked to the guys over the weekend at WaaS we're about to call it WaaS Camp. That's what we're calling it, at WordCamp, and so they still do it, but it's not their focus like it once was. So anyway, yeah, I would say that the best tool you need to get right out the gate is going to be WP Ultimo.
Yeah. We've had Arindo on a couple of times. Arindo Duque, who's the developer. I just found out that he's moved to Spain just the other day. Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, a complete aside. So that takes care of the sort of the nuts and the bolts of offering subscriptions, setting up all the templating. It does all of the stuff that you will need. And then maybe is that where your stuff steps in?
Yeah, so as we were building out our own WaaS, we started, where we very first started actually was we wanted to be able to have, in the process of signing up for a website, we wanted to create a way for our customers to be able to offer our customers order bumps, upsells, and downsells in that process. And so we found ThriveCart at that time, and we created our first plugin. We created it obviously for our own specific need because that's what we wanted. And then simultaneously we started building out the Facebook group, and thought, if we have this need, then someone else might have that need. And so it was a pretty good success. A lot of people were interested, ended up getting it from us. And as we realized that this was something that we could do, like we can actually scratch our own itch and start building tools and plugins out to fulfill our needs. The snowball effect just started going, and now we have about 20 different plugins that you can that helps in that facilitate that process.
Yeah, you've been on a rapid clip this year, haven't you? I mean, 20 literally this time last year. Maybe there was the ThriveCart one, but that was the first one, and then you've built out 19 or so more. That's impressive. That's really impressive.
We're coming out with 2 more this week, actually. So yeah, and we have a really big project we're in the works on. I don't want to divulge too much of it, but okay. I'm super excited about where the WaaS is going, where we're taking it, and what it means to just everybody. I think it's going to actually, in my opinion, it's going to revolutionize the way even agencies do, manage their customers with their websites. So it's good.
So people listening to this who have, let's say you've got experience with WP Ultimo and you realize what multi-site can do and so on. What is it specifically that you are providing on top of what WP Ultimo can do? Now, I know that you've got these 20 different things, but just to give an idea of it, it feels almost like it's a plugin architecture within a plugin architecture, if you know what I mean. You've got the WordPress plugin ecosystem, and then you've kind of built a WaaS plugin ecosystem almost, where you take presumably headaches that came up as you played more and more with WaaS and then tried to solve them. What are some of the ones that you've got that are most popular, that are most interesting for us to talk about, that are easiest to explain?
Yeah, let me talk about the basic ones at first, what we were trying to solve. So the issue we were trying to solve first was that we found that when customers that are not web developers, they're just doing their thing in whatever business they're in, they get to WordPress, and there's 3 different areas that they can make changes to their website. And I think that's a bit confusing for them. They have the customizer, they have the dashboard, and they have the front end page editor. And so if someone that doesn't know anything about websites says, I want to change my logo, how would they know to go to the customizer to do that? They see it on the front end of their website. Why can't they just click on there and change their logo out? And so those are some of the things that we saw was an issue. So what we tried to do is bring the 3 of them into the dashboard. So we took the items from the customizer and integrated with multiple themes and brought basically the features that they have inside the customizer and brought them to the dashboard in the plugin we call Site Settings Pro. And we also added a couple of other features inside of that you would expect in site settings, like such as your company name, social accounts, Google Open Graph stuff, things like that you would expect to be able to fill out inside of a settings area.
Yeah.
And then we provide a shortcode that you would put on your templates, and when they fill that information out, it automatically populates their website. So that was one of the things that we took care of. Then also on the front end side, the front end editor, we tried to bring that into the dashboard, which I can honestly say wasn't as successful as my original idea was. Just in the nature, not necessarily that people didn't buy it, but just in how it functioned. But we did end up finding, so we created a plugin called Content Editor Pro. The concept was you're going to be able to edit all your content inside the dashboard itself and not have to use the page editor. Since it wasn't a visual editor, it's just not something that people would find interest in working in. But it does serve another purpose, and that is that you can actually, if you use Content Editor Pro, you can switch templates without losing your custom content that you created on your site. So if your customer got a template, they started modifying it, putting pictures, text, all that kind of stuff in there of their own, and then they say, you know what, I like this template a year down the road, I want to change it out. Well, they would have to copy that stuff over into a Word doc or something and then change the template, because typically what happens is that your new site, when you switch templates, will take on all the content from the template itself and then overwrite anything you had. Content Editor Pro actually eliminates that. So yeah, those are the core ones. And then, if you want to talk about interesting ones outside of that, we created an integration with WaaS with WaaS, with Groundhog. We call it WaaS Credits Pro for Groundhog. Mm-hmm. And the concept there was that if you're using Groundhog, if you're not familiar with that, that's a CRM WordPress plugin that allows you to basically create your own ActiveCampaign type thing or MailChimp within your WordPress install. Inside of a WaaS, one of the troubling things, or the things, issues that we came up with using Groundhog, was that if you have credits and you allow your customers to access these credits, to send out emails, to send out text messages, those sort of things, any one customer, there was no way to manage how many credits any one customer would be able to use. And so any one customer can go through go through your funds quickly. And so we've managed to create a system that actually allows you to manage the amount of credits based off the WP Ultimo plans. So if you want to offer X amount of credits in plan A and X amount of credits more in B and so forth, you could do that with that plugin. So it's a pretty cool plugin.
Yeah, I suppose the thing to really consider here is that you are trying to create a solution whereby inexperienced users, people who are not really that familiar with WordPress, have a sort of seamless experience whereby they're not necessarily having to phone you up all the time and say, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do the other thing? Because that is presumably the audience. The audience is not experienced WordPressers. It's about you as the WordPress professional setting this stuff up, making sure that it's as watertight as possible, and then letting your clients go on it. And the more that you can automate it and make it straightforward, the better it will be for your business.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah.
For example, another plugin we have is called Guided Tours Pro. When they sign up, they go through a guided tour, just like you would see on many SaaS products. And so we get a lot of our ideas from the SaaS community or the SaaS related products, because they have it right. They dialed it in. We created one called Reduce Churn. Like if someone goes to cancel, instead of just saying bye, saying nothing to them, we actually send them through a feedback loop of asking them, how can we have served you better? What can we do to improve our services? And so at least if you can't save that relationship, at least you can get some feedback to improve your services. So we really want to help make this entire platform network system function the best it possibly can, and that's why we're creating the tools to make that possible.
Yeah, is the intention to hide WordPress altogether? In other words, is the ambition to just literally obliterate all reference to it, or are there options to keep the WordPress, I don't know, the WordPress admin UI or the WordPress logo hovering there in the top left hand corner of the admin area, or do you just switch all that stuff off?
Everyone has their own preferences. I definitely, the majority of our plugins now, if you actually go to our site, are related to rebranding the different plugins and stuff within. In fact, the two that I mentioned we're going to come out with are two new rebranding plugins, one for Fluent Forms and the other one for their other plugin called Jet Ninja Tables. And so the idea, though, is that when you go to Wix or you go to Squarespace, you're not seeing a form builder made by somebody else. You're not seeing an admin for a different solution. Like you're seeing a nice one single unified consistent branding across their entire network. And so I feel that that's important when you create such a system. It's not because you're trying to hide the tools that help make your system great. It's because you just want to give your customers you don't want to distract them basically from what they need to do, which is just work on their website. Like we have a rebrand for Amelia, for example, and they don't need to know what Amelia is. They don't need to try to figure that one out. They just go and do what they need to do with that tool and move on.
Yeah.
So
I was going to ask, because you've got these dependencies for all these plugins, so you mentioned Amelia, you mentioned Fluent Forms and so on and so forth. Obviously, you're, to some extent, then, if the branding of those things has been removed, you are dependent upon those plugin authors playing by the rules, if you like, and not suddenly overnight updating their plugins such that suddenly what was hidden is no longer hidden,
right.
And you've got to chase your tail, figure out how to, whatever class they've changed or whatever thing that you've done to modify it. Have you had experience with that or problems with that in the past? Things just not working out as anticipated, and the client saying, "Hang on a minute, what's this? I don't recognize this."
Yeah, we have had some of that. It's not as prevalent as you might think. The one that we chase our tail the most on is probably going to be our rebranding for Elementor.
Okay.
They tend to change a lot of things often, which is good. I support that. I think that's a great thing. We use Elementor. We love it. Now, I mentioned Elementor, and I know we're talking about WaaS, and as of now, of this recording, they, in their terms and conditions, they don't allow for the ability to use their Pro plugin inside of a DIY multi-site environment. Now you can use it in multi-site, you just can't use it in something where you don't have some sort of manual process involved, or being able to set a process, I should say. So just want to make that known. We did talk to the guys there over the weekend at WordCamp, and it sounds like they just have a misunderstanding of what WaaS is all about. They were thinking maybe we were handing off the plugin details and letting customers just take it and run with it, and that's not the case at all. So hopefully now that they're a little bit more informed, they might reconsider, and we can honestly say that Elementor can come into the space.
Okay, that's interesting. But there's other options, I presume, Beaver Builder or Oxygen
absolutely.
or whatever it might be.
Yeah, Breezy even has their own WaaS plan. So there's definitely other options. But I just say that because you asked about the rebranding, and that's the only one we rebrand that we chase our tail on. So I just want to bring that up.
With the sort of the way that everything looks, you've got all these sort of different options and what have you. Should we just sort of go through them? Maybe not all of them one at a time, but it kind of feels to me like you've done so much work. It would be a shame to only mention 2 or 3 of them. So do you want to sort of pick a few more that you're proud of and that you think would be significant?
Yeah, so there's a couple that I'm proud of all of them, I'm about to say, but there's a couple that really stand out to me. And that first one is going to be Admin UI Pro. We have 2 versions of it. Basically, it just lets you rebrand the entire admin experience to your brand. So it's pretty awesome. There's a lot of features in there. You can change things out in the navigation, the order. You can add headlines. There's so many cool things you can do. We even added a space where you can put an image. You can take that area out. You can literally make it either one of those plugins. You can make it have the dark mode look. You can change every single aspect of your admin look. So it's a really cool one. Another one, our set of ones that I'm really proud of and enjoy is the Live Editor Pros. Those actually work. We created those mainly because we wanted to work with that Content Editor Pro that I told you about, where basically the front end editor needs to be super simple to use. And then that makes those whatever changes you make inside of Live Editor gets automatically inputted into our Content Editor Pro so that they can make changes to their templates without losing their content. So it gives them a very visual, easy to change plugin, much like the Wallace Inline. I'll give him credit. We got the idea from that plugin itself, and then we created one for Elementor, we created one for Oxygen, and we end up having to create one for Beaver. And I don't really advertise this one because I give Bradley, props, and I don't want to step on toes and stuff. But we had to create it just because of the Content Editor Pro situation. We wanted to make sure, we had to have some sort of control over that. So, yeah, that's what we've created. I'm really excited about those ones. A lot of people tend to love that. And let's see what else License Activator Pro. One of the challenges with multi-site is that there's some plugins and themes out there that require you to enter the licenses individually on each new subsite. And so License Activator Pro solves that issue for any plugins that have been brought to our attention. We make sure we get that integrated in there. So if you're listening to this and you're using multi-site and you think of a plugin, let us know and we'll add that in there as well.
Yeah.
We're constantly updating. Not only are we constantly making more plugins, but we're doing a lot behind the scenes on making sure things we stay on top of it, and integrations continue to get made and things like that.
Yeah, I suppose one of the questions that somebody would want to know before they committed to, let's say the WaaS Pro community and the WaaS Pro network of products is that your setup is sustainable and that it's profitable, and that they get 2 years down the line and all of a sudden your plugins stop working. How forgive me, I hate asking questions like that, but is it a business that is receiving growth and it's profitable and you're here for the long haul?
Absolutely. We are definitely here for the long haul. It's definitely growing. And I think, as I've mentioned to you prior to going live, this year, 2020, is really going to be all about awareness, creating more awareness around the WaaS. So even as of now, to answer your question, yes, it's successful, it's sustainable, it's going to be, it's a great thing. But I think it's going to be so much bigger and better coming in 2020, 2021, I think is just doing more things like this and getting on podcasts and whatnot, and just creating awareness and letting people know that this is even possible. Mm-hmm. I don't know that many people are even aware that they can create such a system that they can help scale their business, quickly. I know there's things like out there on various hosts where you can duplicate sites and things like that. And that's a good, efficient process, but I think this takes it to the next level.
Yeah. Are there any sort of limitations to this? And what I mean by that is if you were, let's say that you take the approach that each site needs to be fairly unique and you like to build them all out one at a time, and somebody comes along and you think to yourself, okay, maybe they're better on the WaaS product because they've got a smaller budget and so on and so forth. Can you decouple it from the WaaS and turn it into a regular install of WordPress so that you've got that ultimate ability? Would there be ever any need to do it that way, or can this all be done within the the multi-site setup?
Well, there's two ways to answer that. So yes, there is a way to pull a site outside of a multi-site network. But I think what's even more important to talk about is the fact that you're building a system like Wix or Squarespace. They're never pulling anything out of there. They're renting that space. So my suggestion would be that you don't make that possible. In fact, with our rebranding plugins, we try to hide the fact that it's WordPress. There's a double-edged sword to that, because obviously when people know it's WordPress, it's something that they're familiar with. They know it's a sustainable platform and that they have a lot of options. But then at the same time, that's also a negative, because now that if they're that familiar with WordPress, they know they have a lot of options, or should have a lot of options. And you really don't want to be stacking your WaaS with a bunch of plugins that are not useful for your entire network of audience or customers. So, when someone finds out it's WordPress, like, well, that means, can I use this plugin? I heard about this other plugin. Can I add it to my site? And the short answer should be no, because, yeah. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you lock it down. You just make that your business model. Say what you get is what you get. You can't go to you can't go to Squarespace and say, but I want it to do this. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Are there any kind of dependencies that that you need to be thinking about before you launch into this? So obviously we mentioned that WP Ultimo is like the bedrock of it. You've got to get that. So you need to acquire a copy of that. Beyond that, anything else?
No, I think everything else is optional.
Right.
All of our plugins are optional. I would say WP Ultimo is the only real thing that you have to have in order to build it out the way you should build it out.
Okay. So. And I remember one of the things, because I played with this a little while ago, and one of the things that was difficult back in, probably November 2018, was the whole server setup. That was that was fraught with difficulty, largely because of the idea of getting SSL certificates to sort of populate themselves automatically and all of that. Have those challenges been overcome? Are there certain hosting companies who play nice with this setup, or can anybody now go to any kind of hosting and it'll just work?
I wouldn't say you can go to any kind of hosting. However, I can say that there has been several hosting companies that have adopted this. I can speak to Clost was one of the first ones. Then GridPaint got on board. I know Cloudways is actually working on it now. I was talking to them. They're really anxious to get that ability. I think everyone is seeing the writing on the wall that this is, maybe it's not there yet, but this is going to be the future of digital marketing and for agencies that have managed websites for part of their services. So there's a lot that want to get involved. So I would say, you can't go to just anybody, but there are several that are directly connected with WP Ultimo. There's like hooks and stuff that they have to connect with Orendo to get set up to make sure that it plays well with their hosting. So not anyone can just go and do it. You actually have to have a tie-in with the plugin itself. So Orendo's constantly adding new hosts to that service.
Yeah. So be a little bit circumspect as you approach this. Think carefully about it. Go and read some documentation around the WP Ultimo plugin, just to check that your hosting environment works. Because it'll work on any hosting environment, but the SSL certificate and the population of that can be slightly more difficult. So go check that out. You were mentioning on the before we start press record, you were mentioning that one of the things that you want to achieve in the coming year is just awareness that WaaS is a thing. It felt like that was going to be organic, but now it perhaps needs a bit of a push. And you were talking about the fact that you're going to spend quite a lot of the next year putting documentation together and courses and so on. Do you want to leap into that and tell us what you're doing to make it so that this is easier than it would have been this time last year?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest challenges that we found inside the group that I've found is that people will get in the group and they get aware of the entire concept and the business model. And then they'll say, okay, I know I need WP Ultimo and I see that I could use your plugins, But where do I start? How do I start? And so instead of turning them away, or it seemed to me that we needed to provide them with some sort of training. And so we're actually on Black Friday going to be launching our WaaS Camp, is what we're calling it, and Camp with standing for courses and membership plugins. And basically, we're going to walk you through the 3 different areas that we feel are most important in creating a WaaS. And the first step is planning. And so we have plans. So basically, picking your niche. How do you pick a niche? All the things that you need to consider, like how you pick a host and that kind of stuff that we just talked about. And then the second one is going to be publishing. What are actually taking the tools and putting it together and showing you how to actually do it, so you can see step by step. By the time you're done with our training, you'll be able to have an active working WaaS. And then lastly is just as important as building it, you need to be able to promote it. And so just the 3 Ps: publish, plan, publish, and promote. And so how do you get your WaaS out into the marketplace so that you're successful? And we cover all of that, and we have a bunch of bonuses in there. We have a lot of things going on. And also we have inside of WaaS Camp, we'll have all of our plugins, like a deep dive into each of our plugins. To put it out in the public space didn't make a lot of sense, because just people that are not using our plugins wouldn't necessarily want to watch those kind of videos. But inside of WaaS Camp, you'll be able to know exactly how to use every one of our plugins, not just what they're supposed to do, but exactly how to implement them.
And you say that's going to be coming out on Black Friday. This podcast will probably hit the publish button after Black Friday, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. Okay. The principle though is the same. Is it a one-time thing, or are you going to is that a subscription service so that you keep up to date with everything, or?
Yeah, so it's going to be 1.0. So it will be kind of, I don't know if you know of, I'm sure you probably have heard of him, maybe, of Jeff Walker from Product Launch Formula. So it'll probably be similar to his business model in terms of how he comes out with new training once every other, several years or whatever. Yeah. And so it'll be the same thing. So you'll continue to get the add-ons until it's completely refreshed and revamped, and then we'll have a small fee to get you into the next version. Okay. But you'll have access to it, lifetime access to it. But as far as keeping updated, there'll be like a small fee, nothing big.
Okay, thanks. One of the things that I'd be interested in is putting a dollar amount, an absolute bare minimum dollar amount on what would it cost for me to set up a WaaS with very few bells and whistles, and then we can talk about your individual plugins and what your pricing is and so on. But what would be the annual cost split over 12? So let's say a monthly cost for having a WaaS up and running. So I think probably I'm talking WP Ultimo license copy, hosting, and probably that's it at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm looking at WP Ultimo's pricing as of today, because we did talk, and he looks to be changing his pricing model here shortly. Okay. So he's got a $4.99 one-time lifetime thing. I think that is actually going to go away. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I believe that's what he said. But then he's got a $250 one for a year. So, and it ranges from $99 to $250 depending on what add-ons you want to have. And then you're going to have your hosting. So you can multi-site, you can host on pretty much anything, but obviously I think you need to be aware that you want to have some minimal requirements. Like you want to make sure that you have enough space on the server and that kind of thing for growth. So you don't want to just use like a shared server. You want to make sure you have a dedicated server. Certain things like that you want to take into account. Just be smart about it. Inside of our training, we talk about all that kind of stuff. So as far as pricing, like we have a WaaS host. We partnered with GridPane. We have something called WaaS Host, and we charge $50 a month for the hosting. So that gives you an idea to have set up one WaaS. And then you have Arindo's thing. If you pay $250 a year for his top plan, what is it?
Yeah, so well, you're sort of looking at sort of $70 a year, $70 a month, aren't you? Really, if you go with your hosting solution plus Arindo, roughly $20 a month, something like that. Right. So you're in 2 digits. You're not creeping up into 3 digits. That's you don't have to take in too many subscriptions before it does more than break even.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really nice. So, what about the pricing of your of actual your products on the homepage of WaaS Pro? If you scroll down, I'd say about halfway, you'll see a whole bunch of tiles, and there they are all listed. And there's a sort of learn more button in each case, which takes you to and gives you more information about it. But it might be nice to run through what your sort of pricing per plugin is. Yeah,
the majority of our plugins are about $97 each. And some of them are less. I mean, if they're just rebranding something, then that's going to be less. But the core plugins are going to be $97 each. Now, what we've done is we realized that we don't want to keep our customers from being able to access all of our plugins. Our goal is to put them all in your hands. And so we created a pro membership so that it's only $97 a month and you get access to over 20 of our premium plugins. You get access to all of them, which is over 20 at this point. And so we just felt that was a good way to get all of our plugins into our customers' hands without them having to pick and choose which ones they think they might want. Because unless you have actual access to them, you really don't know what they can do for you until you start actually getting in there. And you're like, wow, this one, I didn't even think about that problem, and now you solved it. And so I want to make sure that we get them in your hands. So
what's that called? What's the sort of the bundle where you get everything?
Yeah, the bundle where you get everything is called the Pro membership.
Okay, and I can actually see that right at the bottom, beneath all the tiles. You've got the option to look at the Pro membership, which is kind of like everything all rolled up. And man alive, like honestly, this time last year it was one, maybe two things. But just to give you some sort of insight, so we've mentioned like the admin UI where you can change the admin settings and so on, and the settings wizard and the guided tours and what have you. But the site analytics, there's a stock library plugin. We mentioned the content editor plugin, but you can have that in a Beaver builder or an Elementor flavor. Live editing for Elementor, Beaver, and Oxygen. Rebranding for Elementor. Lifter LMS, if you want to throw that in as well. I can see that being really interesting. Amelia, which is a booking plugin. You mentioned the reduced churn, and your licensed one. You've got the Groundhog, WP Ultimo. Cart Flows, Thrive Cart. So Cart Flows is a way to kind of incentivize people from not, how to describe it, it's your WooCommerce plus, shall we say, and then Thrivecart is a SaaS e-commerce solution. So there's quite a lot in there.
Yeah, quite a bit, and we have more coming, and it's exciting. It's really exciting.
So maybe 2021 will be the year of WaaS. Do you want to, just before we close out, do you want to give us your email address or your Twitter handle in case anybody's interest has been piqued so that they can get direct to you?
Yeah, so the best way to reach us, actually, so that you have access to me and my entire team, would be on our Facebook page, also the group. But if you want to specifically reach out to us, if you go either to our website down the bottom right-hand corner, you can reach out there. That actually connects to our Facebook Messenger, and that's the best way to reach out to us. But if you want to email us, you can do that at info@waaspro.com. And then our phone number is on the website as well, somewhere probably down at the bottom.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, Michael Short, hopefully the time is nigh for WaaS in the year 2020. Good luck with that, and I hope it proves to be profitable.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the WP Builds podcast again. That was a really interesting discussion. The idea of websites as a service, or WaaS, seems to be growing in popularity. You do plenty of work up front, set up the templates, set up the stack of things like WP Ultimo and WaaS Pro plugins, and you've got a nice business which hopefully should run itself to some extent. Really interesting topic indeed. Don't forget, head over to wpbuilds.com/deals and you can get 20% off with the offer code on that page, and wpbuilds.com/win. If you're listening to this at some point in May 2020, then you've got a chance of winning one of 5 plugins that Michael is giving away from his WaaS Pro website. Okay, don't forget, we'll do another podcast next week. We'll be back on Monday for the weekly WordPress news. 2 things on a Monday. I'll produce my auditory diatribe of the weekly WordPress news, and then at 2 p.m. UK time we will have our weekly WordPress news live with some notable guests from the WordPress community. You can find that at wpbuilds.com/live. Okay, here comes some unbelievably cheesy music, possibly the cheesiest this year so far. Have a nice week. Bye-bye for now.